This is Movies, a podcast about the active cinema. And with me today for our 300th episode of the program, he was just telling me he had to give his mother's dog an enema. It's Hans. Hans, how are we doing tonight?
Yeah, good. It was pills through the mouth, but yeah, I had to help with that because it's an old 16-year-old dog that probably should have died a couple of years ago already. And he won't let anyone touch his mouth with the like th three teeth that he has left. So he was just biting and scratching my mother. So I had to step in as the only able man in this house. Since my dad is all fucked up.
So your dog was trying to abuse your mother, and you had to step up as the man of the house and say,
Yeah,
absolutely not. You're not going to lay your fingers on my mother, you
that's right.
fuck.
It's a little Yorkie too, so it's not even like it's not even like a menacing
Oh,
dog or
damn, I
anything.
was
Just
imagining like a greyhound or something. Well,
um,
he's kind of like the pet dog of this show. We have back with us Detective Wolfman on the line. Detective Wolfman, how are you doing this evening? Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm doing very well. I'm very flattered and excited to be here for the 300th episode. Thank you so much.
Of course, after a whole year where you had not been on the show, and then you come on the show for 299 for Silver Bullet, here we are, episode 300, back to back. Very few people, very few guests have been allowed back to back appearances. You're in a very exclusive club here, Wolfman.
I'm happy to be there.
Well, we're happy to have you back for this episode to discuss more Stephen King just in time for Halloween. We're going to be talking about Doctor Sleep.
I
Oh
was just gonna
boy.
say that this is like, a true knot that's tied and
A
cannot be
dog's knot.
untied.
That's right.
Yeah. Like Rose, I'm quoting Rose the Hat, by the way. I know you guys didn't get that quote, but it's
Oh,
one
no,
of
I
the.
got it.
Oh, okay.
The
All
True
right.
Knot is their group, their
Yeah.
traveling carnival band that
Circus.
goes
Yeah.
around eating children's souls. And boy, are they very desperate for that soul energy that exits the body once somebody dies.
Yeah. They should be called Munster and Sons because that's what they look like. They
Their
look like
outfits are
they
really off-putting. That
look
hat,
like a neo folk band out of Austin.
Everyone's a different race, right? Everyone's just very diverse cast of
is it
characters.
though? I feel like you've got some gypsy characters in there. You got the tall man from Twin Peaks who pops up in the red room,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the Black Lodge rather.
Well,
And you've got like there's a Native American guy who pops up on a bunch of AMC shows. I feel like
mhm.
he's a mainstay for that. Like, I don't know if it's that diverse, Hans.
You got
No,
a white. Yeah, go on.
there's a few white people, but there's not Rosario Dawson. There's not Anna Kachin. There's a Pajit in there. Yeah, there's a fair mix, and it's led by a shanty Irish whore. So I mean, it's a pretty diverse group.
Yeah,
But
worst of all.
I'm glad you brought up the hat because
Ma-
immediately I was annoyed because they call her Rose the Hat. Everybody in this group has a fucking hat. So
That's why Hans and I are both wearing hats tonight.
yeah,
why is she the hat?
because it's a magic hat, right? That's what she's. That's the only
Oh
explanation
yeah.
why she's wearing it. She just says, "Hey, it's a magic hat," and it's like, "Oh, all right, that."
Hans, can you pull
Uh,
up a photo of Slash from Guns N' Roses real quick? I feel like there's something being mirrored here. Wolfman, do you have what is your history with The Shining? Do you have any sort of fondness for that book slash movie?
Yeah, I mean, I love the movie. I never read the book. Um, my a lot of my history with Stephen King is so I've read a few of his books, but a lot of my fondest memories of Stephen King stories was when my older brother would read his books, and then every weekend we would walk to Blockbuster Video to rent a movie, and on the walk he would tell me what had happened in the book up to that point. So he basically recounted all of The Shining to me. He recounted all of it to me in that way. And so that's how I eventually went on to read it. I still haven't read The Shining, but yeah, I love the movie. It's like, it's a masterpiece.
I think The
Um,
Shining might be Stephen King's scariest piece of writing. There you go. There's Rose the Hat.
wait, I'm
yeah.
trying to. There.
That's right.
hmm
That's right. So this is our bad guy, our big bad of Doctor Sleep.
Our
Yeah.
shiny-eyed villain.
hmm
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Yeah, like this pretty lady with a goofy dress sense, very terrifying.
she
This-
went on to play Paul's mother in Dune, in the new Denis Villeneuve Dune. I think she's got this incestuous relationship going on with him that they decided to add in there. Yeah, no, The Shining as a book, and I discussed this recently on Perfume Nationalist with Jack Mason, who we will have on for the next episode for our Halloween special and talk about The Exorcist. We got into The Shining, the book, and my revisiting it was a pleasant surprise because I had picked it up, I feel like around age 20 or 21. Maybe I was early into college, and it was spooky. It was very eerie. I think the scene where you have little Danny Torrance walking into, I believe it's room 217 in the book and 237 in the movie, is probably his most eerie, well defined piece of horror writing. And of course, we got to revisit that hit here in Doctor Sleep.
oh hell yeah.
But I really enjoyed the Shining novel. Kubrick's film, I think, is masterpiece, of course. And then there's the 1997 or maybe 98, I think it was 97, made for television adaptation written by Stephen King, directed by Mick Garris, titled Stephen King's The Shining, where they got Steven Weber from Wings to play Jack Torrance, and Elliot Gould makes an appearance for some reason and is hardly acting at all. He's just acting like he's reading off a cue card that's just right out of the camera's view. And I have to say, Doctor Sleep plays as much like a sequel to that miniseries than anything else. This film, when we watched it originally, when it came out in, I believe it was what, 2019 or 2018, Hans?
Let me see.
It was around that time.
It was
was
2019 because I
19, yeah.
listened to that episode today in preparation for this.
Our original episode where we are just disgusted with this movie.
Yeah. Well,
It's,
and you both sound like completely different people.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys just got better at like podcast voice or if the years have had that much of an effect on you. Hans, your accent has gotten more pronounced.
Wow.
Oh no.
Yeah,
Oh,
like,
Jesus.
Which yeah, you've been in the States, you've been making films in America, and yet you
Yeah.
sound more foreign than ever.
Yeah, I guess. Well, I only speak English with my girlfriend too, so that doesn't make sense. But I guess maybe, yeah, I don't. I'm playing the race card and playing more Latino here.
He's trying to get those opportunities on his plate. Yeah, I think mine is probably just cigarettes and the occasional whiskey playing a part for me. Now, Doctor Sleep, this was a critically well received movie when it first came out in 2019. People were over the moon with this film, and it really tapped into a lot of the pleasure points of the culture for that time, where you had the Stephen King revival because of It 2017. And also, it started this resurgence of horror movies being so critically well received, which is a given these days. It's very rare that you see any horror movie premiere in theaters that has less than like a solid 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. Saw X, if Saw X was released in 2005, it probably would have premiered with a 19%, a 17%. Now you go on Rotten Tomatoes, has like an 85%. But Doctor Sleep was kind of the end of the train for Stephen King. This movie was a flop in terms of financial box office, but it was critically beloved, and I just couldn't understand it for the life of me. I was revolted by what they did with this movie, and obviously, I think there's something to be said about having these CG renditions of people, like, for example, with the Ghostbusters movie that Jason Reitman did. They brought back the actor's name is
Harold Ramis.
Harold Ramis, thank you. They bring back Harold Ramis through CG. Or you check out the Flash movie and they have Christopher Reeve, CG, full CG. George Reeve also, full CG. Adam West, CG. And it's off-putting in its own right. But this movie did something unique, which we'll get into in a little bit, that I found detestable from just a point of taste and any sort of quality. So I never understood why people were so warm on this movie, aside from Mike Flanagan, the director, who again looks like an adult baby. If you can just pull up any photo of him, Hans,
Yeah, 1 second.
I never understood why people enjoyed this movie. Now, Wolfman, was this your first time watching Doctor Sleep for this show?
Yes. I haven't seen the theatrical version, so I just went in, yeah, balls deep in the director's cut.
Oh,
Um, so
great
uh
man.
yeah, I mean, I was happy to do it for the show. I took a lot of notes. One thing though that I think is important to bring up, because you mentioned LowRes, that this is all gearing up for Halloween.
Hmm.
You know, it's Halloween, it's spooky season, and here we have a sequel to The Shining, one of the scariest movies of all time. You know what's scary to me? A beautiful sunny day. Being outside on a beautiful sunny day, with lots of color and no threat whatsoever.
And a
That's
terrible looking,
horrifying.
just a terrible looking Netflix filter on top of everything that just
Yes.
makes it look like those ads that you get on Instagram where it's like, if you want to make your films look better, buy this
Well,
pack of
Yeah,
filters,
yeah.
and it looks
no.
exactly like that.
So I love the Impractical Jokers. It's a not so guilty pleasure of mine. And whenever I'm like staying with a relative, I'm on a trip and the TV's on, we'll just put it on True TV and watch an Impractical Joker marathon, have it on in the background while we talk, whatever. And then there will be a commercial break. And the commercial break is usually just a bunch of products for sexual deviance. This film, uh, visually, is indistinguishable from those commercials. You could cut it in at any point and you wouldn't realize that a movie had come on. Why does everything look like this now?
That's a good question. I think I might have figured out one of the main reasons for that. And it's become a little more mainstream with video editors adopting DaVinci Resolve. That seems to be like the most popular editing platform suite these days is DaVinci Resolve. And that's because it has all of these built-in tools that you would otherwise have to use third-party software for, and is typically only reserved for professional editors who really know what they're doing. DaVinci Resolve dumbs a lot of that down so people have an easier time navigating these things. And one of the big things that DaVinci Resolve offers is a tool called Relight. And Relight offers an artificial lighting, and you can add these artificial lighting sources. And this is what I'm seeing now all over the place. I'm like, wait a minute, this Netflix artificial look is that. It's the artificial lighting of these shots. And I think it's all over Doctor Sleep. It's all over many of Mike Flanagan's horror shows. It's this flat, colorful, well lit, not really shadowy. There's hardly any ambience to it. Look, this veneer that has been popularized because people love a crystal clear image whenever they're watching a movie. So I think that's one of the main things. No, I despise it too, as a matter of fact.
See, I went through this like back in like 2013 when all my friends got new TVs and they all had that like motion smoothing shit on them.
Mm-hmm.
And none of them could tell. I was like, why does your TV look fucked up? And they're like, what are you talking about? And it's like, I've seen this movie a million times. It would be on. And I'm like, it looks wrong. Like it looks like we're there on set. Like it doesn't look like a movie. And then it took them forever to catch on to that. But yeah, like I guess just most normal people can't tell.
There's a lot of things that stick out to people as that sort of hyper realistic or ultra artificial look that I think is misplaced at times. Like for example, when it comes to motion smoothing, I had seen a tweet where people were posting, I think it was some soccer game, and it just looked funny because the frame rate was high or however it was shot was weird. And they were like, see, this is what happens when you shoot in 8K. This 8K image just looks so hyper realistic to the point where you can't enjoy it. But it's not that. That's an incorrect. You're ascribing the wrong thing here to that. It has a lot to do with the lighting. The camera choice does matter. The dimensions never matter. because you zoom in, zoom out. It's fine. It'll maybe be a little more crystal clear the higher the resolution. But for the longest time, I feel like we've been in a place of what is wrong here? Why does this look this way? What is this problem? We can't really sum it up. We can't describe it. We can't explain it. But I do think a lot of it is that it's not just CG. It's also this false lighting and how they choose to approach the standard now for release.
And it's probably just out of laziness too, right? Because then you don't really have to think that much about what it's going to look like when you shoot it if you just have that option of relighting it on the edit. So then you can just do whatever and not even focus that much on when you were shooting it, which it's it's enraging how this is supposed to be a sequel for a movie that was directed by someone that was so autistic when it comes to his shots, and how specific he was with everything. Every single shot had a reason to look the way that it did. And then you give the sequel to someone that just makes the movie look like anything that comes out in that platform. So I think that's probably the most egregious, most upsetting part of this whole thing, where it's like, don't say that it's a sequel to anything. And there's a couple of scenes where he tries to remake them too. The scene of them driving to the hotel, but it's at night, so it's scarier because it's at night instead of the ominous beginning of The Shining where he's driving to the hotel and he has like creepy music. Oh, it's the same, but you know what? It's scarier because it's night and you can barely see anything, but we're gonna play the same music to make it creepy, and it just doesn't work at all. The effect is completely lost. Even if it's trying to mimic what those shots look like, it just completely ineffective. And by the time we get to that too, we're like 2 hours in. On the theatrical, I don't even know on the directors, you're probably like 2.5 hours in. And I'm just kind of just done with it by that point, when you're even trying to mimic what Kubrick did. And it's just no style, just zero visual style. The camera movements that he does in this movie are the only thing he does, I guess, is, oh, the character is laying down and then he got up and the camera got up with him. That's as creative as his shots get. And the first time I saw it in 1, 2, 3 movies, I think it was, and it was very bad quality. So I thought, just like with Elvis, I thought that might have affected how, like, my opinion on what this movie was. But now after seeing it clearer, it's worse, and I hated it more than I did the
Well, now
first
you have to
time.
take
But
it seriously as a real movie, not just a
yeah,
leaked movie that you got a hold of.
yeah, and just upsetting from the first moment to the end. It's just a miserable experience.
Because the reception of this movie was so positive, I really felt for the longest time like I'm bringing something to this that is souring my experience here. There's obvious complaints that I think are valid, which we'll get to regarding the third act of the movie. But maybe I'm just not getting something here. Maybe I'm a curmudgeon. Maybe they're right in that I'm just looking to hate the movie. But no, I really was not. I bought this movie. I returned to this movie several times. I was like, there's got to be something. If I talked myself into liking the Green Lantern movie on my third watch of it, surely the Doctor Sleep movie is going to be an easier time. But no. I've watched the theatrical. I've watched the director's cut. The director's cut only seems to improve the gore or like the child death aspect, I guess. But is that really worth the extra 40 minutes of fucking runtime? No, it's not. It's really not.
So what's at it? What are those extra 40 minutes? What they kill more kids? Is that it?
No. I think it's just there's a lot more story that's added, and there's also the indulgence into that because they're not bound by like, okay, well, I mean, honestly, they can do whatever they want these days, but I think they were more apprehensive to protect the R rating. If you want to look up like a list right now so we can compare and contrast, because I'll tell you what, I did not watch the director's cut for this viewing. I watched
Mm.
it a while back, so I couldn't tell you fresh off the top of my head what is different. I did watch the theatrical because that's what was on HBO Max. And I assumed, Wolfman, you were probably going to settle on the theatrical. I didn't know you were going to go all the way
No,
per my recommendation originally.
Well, I wanted to go all the way because I remember Hans mentioned it too the last time we were recording. And it was only a half hour difference. And at that point, the difference between 2.5 and 3 hours is not that great. Like the
Mhm.
evening shot either way. Uh, but I don't know. I don't know the differences between the theatrical and the director's cut, but I can tell you this for the director's cut. The first 45 minutes can all go. The movie opens with a scene. It's 1980 where they get this little girl in an RV park and they drive away. uh you cut from that to Danny getting his chip and being like, I'm Dan Torrance, I'm an alcoholic. That's where the movie needs to start. Everything that comes before that is shit. It's worthless. You don't need it. All the stuff that goes back to, honestly, the movie's greatest flaw is that it's connected to The Shining. If they just removed that, like, you could have gotten an interesting story, because already it's basically they're trying to make two movies and smash them into one.
Mm-hmm.
There's one movie about Dan Torrance, who's an adult, and yeah, he speaks to the dead and he's Dr. Sleep. He works as an orderly and he helps people cross over, he helps them die. That's one story. Then you have another story about Munster and Sons, these vampires who travel in the world's largest conspicuous caravan, and they go around like eating people's souls. That's a different movie. And I also thought it was interesting that for that, because Stephen King, yeah, he's a whack job, especially since he got run over by that van. Uh, to have a sequel to one of his bigger properties and have it be about these like kind of psychic vampires, that would fit in so much better to like a Carrie sequel or a Firestarter sequel. Why? Why The Shining?
So you just touched on something that has been a problem the entire way through with Doctor Sleep, because I've said on the show before, I love the idea of having an adult Dan Torrance working as a hospice nurse and dealing with his, the addiction that his father passed down to him and seeing ghosts. I'm very all in on that. And just like with the movie, when I started reading the book back in 2013 or 2014, whenever it was, as soon as they introduced the true knot, it loses me. I don't care about this fantasy aspect at all. And it is really a significant anchor on everything that could be good about Doctor Sleep. Just like the movie here, the opening, I want to say, maybe about like the opening sixth of the novel plays like a direct sequel to The Shining.
Mm.
And I think that is the strongest element of that book. Everything else is trash. And it sticks, like the movie itself sticks pretty close to the page, with the exception of the ending and the Uncle Dan aspect. In the book, he's actually her uncle. In this movie, I don't understand why she's calling him her uncle at all. It doesn't really fit. It feels very forced in there. The juxtaposition is not natural at all, and it just comes across peculiar. So the ending here, where they return to the Overlook, that is not in the book. What's in the book is totally separate. They took Stephen King's ending to The Shining and tried to merge it into the Kubrick universe of The Shining, essentially, and make up for that.
Right.
It just feels completely unnecessary, right? Expanding on, this is a power that many people have, and there's this secret society of people that suck the shine from children.
Suck the shine off a trailer hitch.
Because they need it, because it gives them shiny eyes. Like it doesn't work at any point, and it's just, like you said, it feels tacked. Like it just feels like extra. Like you kind of want to see what his story is and what he goes through, but the movie keeps cutting to this band of gypsies being very corny with each other, The whole snake bite, what's her name? Snake bite Amy is her name, I
Or
think.
Annie, I think.
Annie, where
Yeah.
she's in the movie theater and drugs the guy, and the guy falls asleep or whatever, and then she cuts his cheek and leaves snake bites on his cheek because she should not be doing this. And it's
Which,
just
by the
like, what?
way,
No.
she's dressed like a 1940s character, and he's also dressed like some mid 20th century businessman.
Yeah.
And then she's like, "And if you keep browsing AOL chat rooms,
Yeah.
like it just takes you out of it. Like, all right, if you're gonna do the merging of style in a way like Batman '89, go all in. Don't have it just be for this one scene where they're dressing like people from 100 years ago. Do it throughout the movie, and they don't do it throughout the movie.
Mhm. Well, so that scene bothered me a lot. And I don't know, I might raise some red flags, make some enemies here. But you mentioned this on the first episode you guys did with this. This whole concept that this girl is this 15-year-old really goes out the window when the actress is clearly like in her mid 20s.
Mm.
Uh so you don't know, as an audience member, you don't know if she's actually a young girl or if she's like an older prostitute who has like a baby doll act. So you really don't know how you're supposed to feel about this situation. But I know, just as a person watching this movie, uh if a character's whole motivation is that they're going online and soliciting men to come meet them and fuck them, and then they're angry that the men show up to do it, I'm not sympathetic to you. And yeah, I have no interest in you at all as a character. If
Well,
anything, she's the greatest villain in the film. She's the
we
most
also
loathsome character.
we also don't see the man doing anything when he's just asleep, right? So
Yeah.
then it's like, how is that effective in any way where you don't even make me hate him? But instead, it's just kind
Yes.
of like, okay, so he's asleep, and this girl that he's on a date with just cut his cheek because she wants to leave her snake bite mark and then say something corny. I wish I had written down what her line was, because it was just like everything that comes out of any character in this movie is just like, why, every line is just like, no,
Yeah,
who
yeah.
speaks like this?
Stephen
Yeah.
King does. All his characters speak like that. The one
Now,
of the other problems.
is that a Stephen King thing, or is that like a New England thing?
No, that's not a New England thing.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm just
let's clear
curious.
the.
I'm not trying to throw shade or anything like that, but yeah, I didn't know.
I will say that people in Maine definitely speak in a different way than people in, we'll say, Boston. But no, Stephen King notoriously has really corny dialogue, and that shines through the most, no pun intended, with the Shining
Uh,
'97 miniseries where you have Jack Torrance and all his corny catchphrases and lines that Stephen King himself wrote for
mm,
Steven Weber to perform. And it's the worst thing in the world. It's so horrible on the ears. Now, what this problem here is with the movie theater sequence also is that there are all these little pockets of world building that it fits with a novel. It doesn't fit with a movie. When you find
mhm.
yourself in these moments for a movie, it winds up slowing down everything. And you're focusing on these characters for a short period of time that are ultimately going to be not very consequential to the plot and where things are going. And whatever that story winds up being for that character comes not only second, actually it comes third, really, because you have Dan, you have Abra. And then I guess maybe you have like the legacy of the Overlook and Jack Torrance, and that could even be third above whatever happens with this character. Now, as far as pedophile hunters online, I just got recommended some videos on YouTube, and it was like pedophile thinks he's meeting a 9-year-old, but actually it's Michael Myers. And then there's a guy in a Michael Myers mask in a hotel room. It's just like, Jesus, that sounds fucking frightening. If that wasn't already a frightening premise of some dude meeting a 9-year-old, it's Michael Myers who shows up instead of the 9-year-old. So wow, they're really up in the
Oh,
game.
what would be even more frightening? What if it was Michael Myers who showed up instead of the pedophile?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's a great point that I didn't even think about. The why are we spending any time getting to know Snakebite Annie when she doesn't really become an important character at all. What is the only other thing she does? She lures the boy into the van, right? That's like her only other thing, because the next time we see her and she tries to sass the black girl, she gets shot and
That's
she's
that.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So why are we spending 20 minutes with her at the beginning to get to know what her thing is when she could just be part of the Misfits band, you know?
Her purpose is to just be a vessel for the audience. So Rose the Hat explains what the group is all about. It's she's basically just a vehicle for exposition. But this is what I'm saying, where it's two different movies. Because if you had a movie just about Munster and Sons, she would be the lead. Like, you have this angry young girl who's like becoming a woman. She feels like violated and intimidated by men, and she meets this mysterious Rose woman who's like, oh, you want to be dangerous, you want to be powerful, you want to feel safe, I can give you that, come join our band, you know. And then she kind of like goes off with them and like does some awful shit, and then she has an arc where she like rejects that, and she doesn't want to be evil, she doesn't want to prey on people, and then she overcomes Rose and defeats her in the end. That's a story, that's a whole separate movie that could be good on its own in the right hands. But
How,
it's
how
not.
how is she not safe at any point? The only scene
Well,
that we see of her, she's in power.
but that's the thing. It's like that. Like that's the other thing that doesn't make sense, because Rose, like, this basically, her Snakebite Annie, her whole thing is that she's like pissed that men want to fuck her. Uh, and Rose is like, ooh, don't you want that feeling forever? Don't you want to be 15 forever? And she's like, yeah. Well, no, I wouldn't you want to grow up and be a grown woman? Wouldn't you want to hit the wall so men would stop ogling you? Yeah, typical woman. She doesn't know what she wants. But like, in the context of this movie, if these guys are supposed to be these villains, these monsters that we're supposed to hate and fear, I've got an idea. How about don't have all their scenes take place in the fucking daytime? How about like how about have them be like menacing and loathsome in any of the scenes where they're not killing a kid? Because if you remove the scenes where they kill a kid, you wouldn't know they were villains.
What do you mean? Their eyes shine. Haven't you seen how their eyes get shiny when they suck the shine out? That's how you know they're villainous. It,
Yeah, I guess.
it sucks. And that's the thing. Is this rated R? It's
It
not,
is.
right?
It
It is. Because it feels so safe. The villains never feel like they're actually a threat throughout the movie. Even when they're in the woods and they have like their confrontation in the woods or whatever, they shoot at each other. The first time Dan and his friend, whose name I can't remember, they have this confrontation, they kill like 90% of them on the on the first encounter. So it's like, at no point this band of hat wearing rascals feel like they're an actual threat. Everything is just very goofy. And what they're hunting little 10-year-old boys, which is, I guess, a difficult thing to do, even though all they have to do to get that boy is to show them Snakebite Annie, and then he's like, okay, and that's it. So at no point they're shown as them being dangerous or doing things that you would relate to a villain. It's just them telling you we're bad, right?
Yeah.
And oh, we're the bad guys, and we're dressed like this because we're bad, and we do bad things, but then they don't show us anything bad.
But
So then
yeah,
I guess the only reason why you know they're bad is because they're not friendly with our main characters, and that's it. So
yeah.
where's the threat?
Like the whole horror element of this movie hinges on the one scene where they kill the baseball kid. If you remove that scene, this is not a horror movie. There's not a single attempt to scare you. Even when they invoke The Shining, it's in the most sterile, like bland, completely like toothless way possible. Compare this crew of villains. Compare them to the vampires and the Lost Boys, or to like the crew in Near Dark, who also ride around in a Winnebago. Like, you can tell those motherfuckers are bad. Like the film is directed in a way to bring that across. They fill you with a danger sense, with a sense of dread, and they all have a very unique look and personality. All these guys are just like they're just like regular jagoffs, and they're talking about steam like it's like they're looking for gas. It's like, oh, we're gonna run out of gas. How are we gonna get to the next town if we don't find gas, Rose? And she's like, I'm telling you, there's gas around here. If we just keep heading east, we're gonna hit a gas station. And it's
And
yeah, it's fucking
you
stupid.
you know she's villainous because she just has a smirk on her face the whole time. She's just
But
saying she says something and
Mm.
then just smirks.
but
You
And
know,
she doesn't seem villainous. She's like charming and kind of hot. Like it doesn't work.
yeah,
to-
have them fucking use a baseball bat on some mailboxes, you know, going to a neighborhood and ding dong ditch
Yeah.
some some
that's
doors.
very
Do
Stand By
anything.
Me. That's Kiefer
Yeah.
Sutherland's
Yeah.
gang, Stand By Me. You know,
Hey,
I was just thinking
That's
about it.
another Stephen King tie-in. Maybe one of them is Ace Merrill. You
Oh,
know, and
that
maybe
would've
he's
been
the leader
great.
of the
Yeah.
band.
I was just thinking about it when Danny is a kid and he's being haunted by the lady in the bathtub.
Mm-hmm.
Even that, they just kind of rely on the design of the character in the bathtub, looking at him, being rotted and creepy. That wasn't the point of that scene ever, because you never see the old woman with Danny in the original Kubrick film, or even I think in the miniseries. And in the book, it's just kind of implied similarly. So we're given a glimpse of her totally naked, rotting, and they just kind of hold the camera on her the whole time. They don't try to make it spooky or this eerie moment. They never go for the same vibe. It's just you have to accept that this is a disgusting creature hanging out in the bathtub, and that alone is what's going to be scary. But it's not scary at all.
Yeah.
Like it looks like a pretty good design, but I'm sorry if you hold on that design for 9 seconds, I'm fucking analyzing it, and it's not that scary.
Well, and
Yeah,
did it bug you guys? Did it bug you guys at all that it was clearly a young woman in a monster suit and not an old woman? Like part of what made it creepy in the original is that it's a fucking old hag with her
Yeah.
old hag
Yes.
tits out and her flesh is rotting off.
They would never do that now. Pick up some ugly woman to play ugly woman. They
It's
would pick up
ageist.
it. Even with the miniseries, they got like a pretty older woman, you know, and she's not like ugly. They uglied her up.
But if you also stay on that shot and you see it for longer than 10 seconds, you're just kind of like, okay, lady, like cover yourself up. Like it's
Yeah,
not
as a
scary.
kid,
It's just kind of
put a
like, all
towel
right,
on.
like yeah, like that's the reaction. It's not like, oh my God, that's so creepy. It's just kind of like, come fucking ugh.
Yes,
You
we've all
know?
seen our grandma like that once or twice before. It's
I don't know about
pretty.
that, you know?
That's what I. Anytime you talk about having to clean up after your dad, that's what I'm picturing, Hans.
Yeah. No,
So
that-
you have moments like that, and let's just quickly talk about how they decided to handle the continuation of the Shining characters. You have Alex Esso from the movie Starry Eyes portraying Wendy Torrance. You have
oh.
some random black man they picked up off the street playing the Scatman Crothers role of Dick
Ah,
Halloran.
offensive. That was so offensive. I was so upset because it's like you can tell he's just trying to do a Scott Crothers impression, and he's just very whoopity whoopity up, and it's just like don't
Whoa.
fucking do that. It's like, don't
Fellas,
do that.
oh, the fellas picked up off the street. Whoopity whoopity. I don't know. I don't
It's
know,
just,
guys.
Mind
it's-
you, this actor was supposed to front a third movie. They were going to turn him into Dick Halloran vampire hunter. He was going to be the
Get the
Van
fuck
Helsing of
outta
this
here.
series.
Get the fuck out of
If
here.
this movie had performed well, they were doing the Dick Halloran movie, and it was going to be called Halloran.
But also,
God.
okay, so they have what, 2 scenes in The Shining together where he talks to the boy, maybe? They don't even have like that close of a relationship, if I remember correctly. It's been a while, but I think he's not even in the movie that much, right? Or am I wrong?
Dick Halloran is in The Shining quite a bit. He's with Danny in the opening where they
Right.
have the understanding that he has the shine and Dick has the makes you wonder, why is Dick working at the Overlook if he can see all these spirits on a daily basis? Why the fuck is he working there? What does he have to gain from that? But he meets the little boy, and he talks to him telepathically, and he's got enough of a connection with him. He's a good enough man where he's the lifeline. And so Danny communicates with him from the hotel while he's vacationing down in Miami with the portraits of the nude black women on either side of him in the hotel. And he goes and tries to save him and then dies immediately. Jack fucking puts an axe right in his chest. Not in the book, not in the miniseries. It's I think it's like a croquet mallet or something.
Yeah.
It's what is it, roque? I think it is the game. I might be saying that wrong.
No, I think it's croquet.
Mm. And he lives and then goes on to fuck Wendy Torrance, so that's what's implied with the miniseries. Stephen King didn't add that in the book. So
yeah, it just kind of felt forced. It kind of felt like well, we have to bring another element from The Shining so that you guys remember. Hey, remember The Shining? This is a character in The Shining. So now, even though he's an adult, he still talks to this spirit that died 20 years
well,
ago.
I don't know if I have a complaint with that, because if you remember in The Shining, he has an invisible friend named Tony. So
Right.
it's established that Danny talks to somebody. And in the movie that Kubrick did, Tony is just this weird, who the fuck knows what that
Right.
is. It's like the Ouija board in the attic with Captain Howdy for The Exorcist. We don't know who Tony is. In the miniseries, and I believe not in the book, it's also kind of a mystery, I think. But in the miniseries, Tony is grown up Danny Torrance. And please, Hans, look up grown up Danny Torrance here. Look up Tony from The Shining 1997. He's just a nerd. And he's a nerd who appears every so often to talk to Danny. So in that timeline, Danny can talk to his future self, which is not a ghost. That fucks with like the time space continuum. It's very Ezra Miller's Flash, really. But to the point here, I think it's fine that you have Scatman Crothers returning to him. I'm not even Scatman. Dick Halloran returning to him as a ghost. In the book Doctor Sleep, he's just alive, so he visits him. Oh yes, you have the floating nerd who comes to see Danny Torrance. So,
oh wow, that looks great. Look at that makeup. But that boy is in it.
Yeah,
that
boy's the kid from the Pizza Hut commercial.
Little Rascals boy. Yes.
That's great.
And goddamn, he's the worst actor I think I've ever watched in a movie. He is so painful, this kid. So,
this really should be channel awesome version of that.
Yeah, I watched it so you don't have to.
But so like, I think the way to look at this movie is that it's not directed by Mike Flanagan. It's not directed at all. It's staged. It is staged by Mike Flanagan. He blocked people, he put up a camera, and he filmed it. There's no directing going on here, because a director in the instances with like the Dick Halloran character, or even when Jack Torrance comes back at the end, if you want to include those characters, do it like they did Elvis in True Romance, where there's a shape in the periphery and you hear a voice and you know who it is, but you don't just see it. You don't just see it square. And it also gives you the feeling of like being haunted, like in a fucking ghost movie that's supposed to be scary. But no, they just fucking flatly show them and get actors to do SNL impressions of them.
Oh, it's so bad. That the whole one of the most upsetting things about this movie too is that Shelley Duvall, she went crazy and her life was ruined after her experience in this movie, right? And
hold on a second. That's the prevailing narrative, but clearly she was a fucking nut before then. I'm sorry, nobody goes crazy from working on having a bad experience on a movie. Okay, I don't care. I don't care who you're working with. You could be working with Michael Bay trying to finger you under a fucking restaurant table. It's not going to drive you to schizophrenia unless you were already kind of nuts to begin with.
Okay, so after this and after playing olive oil in Popeye, she went crazy.
It was Robert Altman. Why is he not responsible? It was the same fucking year.
But her performance, I think, no matter what happened to this lady afterwards, you can tell that her performance is amazing as playing this tormented wife who looks terrified every time she's on screen, and who shows a very terrified portrayal of her husband. And then you cast someone that kind of looks like her and try to make us believe that that's the same character, even though there's no pain coming through that face. There's no nothing other than, hey, her haircut is similar and she's got a skinny face, skinny enough,
I think
so
she
they
does a
kind of look
pretty good
alike.
job of mirroring the voice that Shelley Duvall does, but you're absolutely right in that Shelley Duvall's face was a Polish poster for The Shining because it's so fucking goofy and weird. And you don't have actors like that anymore. Like Shelley Duvall's long face and her big teeth, her big
Yeah,
blocky teeth and just
eyes.
hollow eyes, of just a disturbed person who clearly had a probably rough childhood. That's what really drove her to schizophrenia. You don't have
Mhm.
that often in Hollywood. They scare those people away because they don't want to deal with them because they're uninsurable. So I think Alex Esso, who plays Wendy Torrance, I think she does fine for what's called of her, but it's the first red flag with this movie that they're doing something you should not be doing, which is aping the actors who played the characters. It should just
Mhm.
be your rendition. I don't think they
Mhm.
do that nearly as much with Scatman Crothers and Dick Halloran.
He's the least offensive.
Yes, I think so. And I'll be honest with you, when these two characters popped up in Doctor Sleep, when I watched it the very first time back in 2019, it never occurred to me that they would try the same thing with Jack Torrance. It never popped into my head that they were going to try that. Are you killing roaches on camera,
No, it's
Hans?
a mosquito. It's
Okay.
fucking gotten me like 3 times.
Damn. All right. Well, so I was never expecting that, and I should have known better because if you what Warner Brothers does and what a lot of these companies do is they'll try to warm you up for what they're going to do by sneaking in something in a subtle way. For example, here when Suicide Squad was going to be released in 2016, they started putting out Suicide Squad animated movies around 2012, 2013
Mhm.
that were not even titled that because nobody knew what that was. Nobody knew that it was kind of an obscure property at the time. And there was one release called Batman Assault on Arkham, which kind of mirrors what the plot of that movie is. They will sneak things out like that to warm up the potential audience for whatever is to come. Now, I caught in Ready Player One, released in, I believe, 2017, that they did a digital version of Jack Nicholson as Jack Torrance and the twins in the Overlook Hotel. And what that told me was, uh-oh,
Mhm.
they're going to start messing with this in a real way. This is their heads up that they're going to do this. And shortly thereafter, they announced Doctor Sleep was going to be the next adaptation in the King saga of movies, since they released it in 2017 as well, and that was a big box office hit. Now, what we wind up getting in this movie is not just like a sloppy Steven Weber doing his own thing as Jack Torrance. It's Thomas. Who is this kid from E.T.? What is the actor's name?
Henry
Henry
Thomas.
Thomas. Henry Thomas as Jack Torrance, but not just as Jack Torrance, as Jack Nicholson as Jack Torrance, and he can't do the voice. He cannot do the voice. What he did is the receding hairline. He can't do the voice. Hans, you have a much more accurate Nicholson impression than one Henry Thomas. Could we just hear that real quick?
Yeah, I got to hear that.
Hey.
Perfect,
That's it.
Hans. Perfect,
Chilling.
Hans. It was very low. You kind of, I don't know. The volume there might not have been ideal. Can we get another? Can we get take two?
Hey.
Well,
That was
your
worse.
microphone fucked that up. Yes. You got to. I think you got to do a sentence. Give us here's Johnny. Can we
Oh,
just get a here's Johnny?
here's Johnny.
I thought he was on the line with me. I couldn't believe it. I think this might be Nicholson we're talking to right now.
Yeah,
Wolfman is
instead
remarkable.
instead you get this.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Well, so
Yeah.
I felt like they wrote in a line as kind of as almost like a safety net because because his Jack Nicholson impression or whatever isn't great, so they just make him look like him, and Danny keeps addressing him like he's Jack Torrance, but he's like, you have me confused, I'm Lloyd the bartender. And so that just kind of plants it in the audience member's head that, like, oh, he's not supposed to sound like Jack, he's supposed to be like an amalgam of both of them, as like a cop out.
You know, I forgot that he pops up again in the bathroom, and oh no, he looks like Homer Simpson here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. See, I that must have been from another deleted scene or something because I don't remember seeing that.
That I believe is from a montage where
Okay.
Ewan McGregor's Dan Torrance is getting a wave of things that happened in the Overlook. And they throw in little snippets like that. I forgot that he pops up again in the bathroom. I just remembered he's at the bar and they do just a side profile shot because it's
Mhm.
much more believable than anything that's going to be head on. But as soon as he opens his mouth, I think if they had just left it at side profile, I would have excused it. I would have
Mhm.
said, okay, they handled it in an interesting enough way, but they really went all in
He
on
looks like
Henry
Jack
Thomas.
Black.
God damn. That's
But
bad.
it doesn't even look like he's wearing the same clothes
He's
either.
not. He's not. That his shirt, his jacket rather, was a like maroonish, almost reddish color, and that is like straight up brown. So
Yeah. Just why do that? Just don't do it. Just try to figure out like, and that's the thing.
You have to, Hans. If you don't do that, how will the audience know it's a sequel to The Shining?
uh, the whole going to the hotel. I was just like, why? It doesn't make any. Oh, to get her in a trap because in the hotel there's spirits. It's like, what? What? Why are we going to the just? You can
because
just
they
fucking
had to
kill her.
correct Kubrick's movie. The hotel's supposed to blow up. Jack Torrance is supposed to redeem himself. It was see, The Shining is the most personal book that Stephen King ever wrote. Because if you read The Shining, there's stuff in there that is like, oh yeah, this is just Stephen King's life when he was teaching English in his 20s with Tabitha and whatever kid was born first.
Like
And he was a
Joe.
drunk. Yeah, Joe Hill, who looks exactly. They should have had him play Jack Torrance with his
Yeah.
fucking dumb bowl cut.
Yeah.
Um, you know, and it always bothered him that Kubrick was like, okay, I don't care that this is personal. I'm making this my movie. And Jack Torrance is not this sentimental character. He's a lunatic and he's a drunk and he's going to spiral in the worst way and then freeze to death with a funny look on his face and then pop up in the photo in the Overlook. Okay. Mike Flanagan was only given permission by Stephen King, allegedly, if he ignored the Kubrick movie. And then there was some other condition, like you don't return to the Overlook. And he ignored both of those and was like, well, listen, here's what I actually want to do. Let me fix the Kubrick movie and give your ending. And Stephen King was like, I love it. That's an even better idea than just avoiding it. Go ahead. You have my blessing. And he notoriously has horrible taste, of
Yeah,
course.
we
Yes.
should have Mike Flanagan fix every Kubrick movie, right? We should just go back and do a sequel to every single one of those movies and see what
Mhm.
he can do.
He can
It's
fix
The Shining
Lolita.
we need right now.
Right.
Thank you, Mike Flanagan.
The socially conscious Shining, where you
Yeah.
have POC Abra and her father,
Yeah.
who's just
God damn, man. When they said
nerd.
her name was Abra, I shouted "fuck you" at my TV and scared my cat. I could
Oh,
not
my
believe that. And I know that's her name in the book. I know Stephen King did that shit.
Mm.
Well, she's magic, you know.
Yes, she's a magic black girl, of course.
You know, it really does not help the whole magical Negro trope that people complain about with Scatman Crothers by then casting Abra as this young black girl and her like detergent commercial father who's
Oh,
just
yeah.
who's fucking pathetic and dies like quickly in this movie.
Off screen, by the way. We don't
Yes.
even see, just on the floor.
Mhm.
He's being killed.
So that's something, and this is another little. We don't need to go off in the weeds, but I just want to float this to you guys. Have you guys noticed this as well? Because you guys watch more contemporary stuff than I do. A lot of the black actors that they're casting and stuff, they're black in the most
White way.
they're black in the most superficial way possible. They have dark skin, but they act white, they dress white, they have white people names and jobs. There's no black culture or any, and I'm not saying they have to be like C. Thomas Howell and Soul Man, but like they don't even look African. Like they look like a white person in blackface a lot of the time. Is that just me?
No, no, no. I think
Well,
Okay.
that's
they rely on two actors now in particular, and one was Jonathan Majors, and the other is the guy that they are casting in like Aquaman, and they play he played Doctor Manhattan in the Watchmen series. They
Mhm.
are heavily relying on these two black guys who look like they went to Juilliard,
Yeah.
basically. And now there's a third one thrown into the mix, which is going to be the guy from Exorcist Believer. He's probably going to be Jonathan Majors' replacement for one of the
Mm,
two acceptable, not totally emasculated black men that they
yeah.
cast in movies. So yeah, no, you're definitely onto something there. You don't have a very good actor that they should cast more who fits probably the opposite of that is Bokeem Woodbine.
Yeah.
He's awesome. We
Well,
need
and
more
also
Bokeem Woodbine.
he
Yeah.
was in Fargo season 2 along with Zahn
Yes,
McClarnon, who's in this. But yeah,
that's
like
right.
there's no where there's no Delroy Lindo. There's no like new CCH Pounder. Like like none of these just like great black character actors that you used to see. They're all gone. Everybody just wears a sweater and glasses and works on a MacBook.
Well, I don't even think it's just a black thing because now
No,
they're
it's not.
trying to phase out any sort of masculine white actor as well. And
Mhm.
it's like almost not, it's to the point where I've talked about reality television on this show quite a bit, but on reality shows, they stopped casting like the in shape fit guy. And now it's
Mhm.
just a bunch of soft bodied soy types. And it's not just like Survivor, which obviously we talked about that on the show before, but other shows as well have that problem. And it's like if it's a competition show, they will cast like unimpressive slugs instead. And I think acting is just the same thing now, where if you are going to be the in shape guy, then you have to be trim, thin, Timothy Chalamet sort of in shape, which is not really muscular. You can't be
Yeah, you have
imposing
to
at
look
all.
like a post-op tranny.
Yes.
Well, that's Hollywood diversity in a nutshell, right? You have these quotas that they need to fill, but you're never going to go too far away from what you're comfortable and safe with. So instead, what they do is like, hey, there's brown people in it. They're a stereotype. Sure, they're as little and that into that culture as we can get away with by just having them have a little bit of an accent. Hey, Neymar is Mexican. How is he Mexican? He wears that green jewelry. That's as deep as we go. It's all just after forcing that, then it's not like you're casting, like you said, people that would actually make interesting or give interesting performances because of their varied background. No, you cast someone that came out from NYU. I don't even know if they have an acting school
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
NYU, someone that's rich and they have the right skin color. So that's it. And as deep as we're gonna go is, hey, my grandma was a voodoo witch, so I wear this necklace, and that's as deep as it goes. And I think that's the problem with having to force that, or having to, like what the Oscars did now, that you need to have, like, I don't remember what the rules were, but something ridiculous when it comes to even qualifying to that. You have to have a
Right.
bunch of green
Now you
people.
have to have a certain number of people of color either in the crew or the cast in order to qualify. It just comes every one of these complaints comes back and is like solved in a monkey's paw sort of fashion because I think a lot of the complaints and the gripes that happened with movies and entertainment around 2005 to 2010 is like, oh, these people are so pretty, but they don't have any real personality. Why do they always cast pretty people? Now you have ugly people,
Mhm.
but they're like completely void of anything interesting about themselves and repugnant to see. So I don't know. It's no matter what, they're gonna find a way to cast like the least appealing people possible for that because it's convenient to them in some fashion. I think a lot of the actors of the 70s and 80s, what made them interesting and what made them compelling is that their lives were full of problems and their personalities were probably problems and they were probably not that easy to navigate as a person to work with. And you lose a lot of that. And the way that the system is now is not rewarding or accepting of much of that. If it does accept that, then it's from a behind the scenes CEO sort of thing and not on camera talent because everyone is so replaceable and the same now in Hollywood.
There's zero personality, and it's just like a create a character thing where well, we need an African American here, but so we're gonna just think of the whitest African American we can think of, but we're filling the quota, so that works. We need a Mexican, so hey, Coco Mexican. So now he's gonna be wearing a shirt with a skull in it and a sombrero. Cool, we got our brown. It, there's no more care, I think, given to finding the perfect person for the role or the more interesting performance. And now it's more of just filling that color that we need to fill, ethnicity, or even if their ethnicity is um their parents or like their grandparents and they've been rich forever, or they're connected in a way where they never had to suffer anything, or you can tell in their fresh faces that they've never gone through anything difficult, and then have them try to portray characters that are not that at all, but they also don't bring anything interesting to that. So that's why I feel so sanitized. And so what's the difference between this character and the other character? They're not bringing any type of life experience or any type of anything that would make them different than literally any other young actor, I guess, that you can put in that role.
Do you guys have anything positive to say about the performances in this movie? Because I'll tell you what, when I went back and I watched it today, I had less of a tolerance for Ewan McGregor's
Yeah.
performance here. He's a little too, I don't know, like fake folksy or something. I don't. There's something off about his performance, and it might just be the American accent
Yes.
that is grating on me. But it didn't work for me.
I agree with you there. I think, yeah, they will not let him use his speaking voice, and it has been a complete detriment to his ability as an actor. Um, Also, though, the directing, or maybe it's in the writing, I don't know, but they don't really give him a lot to do. And like in Ewan McGregor's earlier career, he was pretty famous for like he would have these big emotional scenes. I feel like in all of his earlier stuff, there would always be at least one scene where he's like weeping or like he's in pain. There's like this real like raw emotion. And here he's playing a traumatized alcoholic who sees dead people. You'd think you'd get some of that, and he's so just flat and monotone and stoic. Uh, and it's like there's no it's like there's no stakes to anything. I don't know. Like maybe I mean maybe he just didn't give a shit. Maybe to him it was yeah, just a paycheck. But yeah, he's fucking boring.
I think his performance here is, you could replace it with his performance in Birds of Prey, or his performance probably in Fargo season 3 when he's playing the not gross twin.
Mm,
It's just unremarkable. He doesn't go for anything here, to much of what you're saying. And you're right. I think he's got such like a neutral, generic American accent. It kills his performance, or at the very least, it stunts his performance.
yeah. Well, and he's trapped. He's kind of trapped in limbo because he's like 50, but he still looks like he's 30. So like he's not getting like the older man roles because he's still so kind of like young and boyish, but he's too old to get the like 35-year-old leading man roles. So I feel like maybe he can have some kind of comeback once he's like clearly old, once he's like in his 60s maybe. But yeah, right now I just don't think there's a lot for them to do with him.
It's also so safe too, right? Because we know that he's an alcoholic because he tells us. And the
Mhm.
one thing he does by being an alcoholic is he sleeps with this woman that has a child, and then he's about to steal her money, and then he doesn't, right? If I'm remembering correctly,
No,
I
he
think he
still
leaves
takes it.
he
some
does. He
behind, but
takes
he
it.
takes it. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's as deep as his alcoholism goes. And now I have to change my life because we don't really see him be sloppy. We don't really see him be a piece of shit to anyone. He's just like, well, now, hey, my name is Dan and I'm an alcoholic. So,
Well, hold on a second. That woman dies, and I think her baby
Yeah.
dies too, right? And then they
Mm.
they come back and haunt him.
In
oh,
one scene.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like basically he leaves because he just assumes she's passed out, but
All
apparently
right.
she's dead. And then yeah, the kid dies from neglect, and he has one dream about it. But even then, like he doesn't he doesn't seem tortured. He doesn't like beg for forgiveness or anything. He just goes to Cliff Curtis's room and he's like, I need to go to a meeting. And
But it,
Cliff Curtis, he's born and raised in this New England town in Maine, but he has a southern accent for some fucking reason. I don't know if that bothered you guys at all. Um, but
but
and
is that really his fault though? Is that really? I mean, she dies, right? It's a woman that he met for one night and then left.
sure.
That's as again, that's probably the most egregious thing about this movie. It's so safe. It's so CW. That's what he felt like. Like I was watching the CW Doctor Sleep because it doesn't go far or deep enough into anything. You
Mm-hmm.
expect me to care about a character that's supposed to be this tortured alcoholic that has to deal with this gift that he doesn't want to have, but his whole gift at the old people house is that, oh, I can talk to them with my mind, and they show this by having an old man acting a fool. And then he goes, you have to calm down. And the old man goes, no, I'm blah, 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 blah. And then he says, you have to calm down, but with his mind. And then the old man is like, oh, yeah, you're right. And it's like, what the, what? That, so he's, it's just fucking awful. I was so upset watching 2.5 or 2 hour 40. I think this I hated every second of it. And when I was done, I was just miserable. And I kind of just wanted to record right then and then. This was, I think, Sunday when I saw this. But it just feels like it's such a waste of time. And I one of the things that bothers me the most too is that so to understand what's going on, you have to know The Shining, right? So that whenever we go back to scenes like when Rose the Hat walks into the hotel and then she sees an elevator and then she keeps walking and then she sees another elevator and oh my God, there's blood coming out of the elevator because, hey guys, remember the bloody elevator? And then she smirks at it and walks away. And it's like, so you need to know what The Shining is to know what's going on or what they're referencing here. But if you enjoy The Shining, you can't enjoy this piece of shit
Oh,
because
that's where
it's
you're wrong because it again, this was loved. This movie
I,
was
I
so
I
loved by
can't
people.
believe that. It's so difficult for me to believe that you can like an art, but which to me is like an art film in The Shining where everything you can tell that this director thought about every single thing that you see on screen. And then here it just looks like again like the CW Shining where there's no risks being taken, there's no stakes, it looks cheap, the performances are boring, it looks like no one wants to be there, no one wants to be performing these corny ass lines. So I as a fan of The Shining, I can't do anything but hate every second of this fucking movie. And when we recorded the first episode, I do remember that our review was one of the few very negative reviews that were on YouTube. I remember a lot of this face
Hmm.
enjoying it, right? But like now that I saw like a clearer version, it's worse than I remember, and I hated it even more. And I don't know how you can enjoy this if you're a fan of the original. That just doesn't fit in my head.
Well, I think
Yeah.
the big thing is that horror fans generally have poor taste, not in
Mm-hmm.
like any sort of, oh, it's so gruesome fashion, but like literally just have poor taste. They don't know how to dress themselves or anything. So when they see something like this, it's like, oh, cool. It's part two. It's like Nightmare on Elm Street 2. It's like Friday the 13th part two. Like they're just thinking of it in that fashion. They're not really associating like, oh, one of, if not the greatest filmmaker of all time, did this very thought out piece of horror back in 1980, and maybe that should just be left alone. Maybe you don't need a franchise around that just because you can do that. And maybe Stephen King wasn't even the best part about that. Maybe that as a concept you should consider. So I think it just boils down to that. And if you look through that scope, then it's fine. What's the problem? You should do 7 of these. Why don't you just return to the Overlook? Why can't it be an HBO Max series called Overlook? You know? And they were, for a period of time, unrelated to the Halloran show, they were considering doing a made for like Netflix or something Shining miniseries. That had the plug pulled on it, and then Halloran, which would have been Shining 3, also died when this did not perform to expectation.
But didn't they have that Castle Rock show? Like, isn't that the same
Yes.
fucking thing where that was
Mm-hmm.
like the expanded universe Stephen King show?
Well, what's interesting about that is that they did that for season 1. And then season 2 was about how they bust a bunch of Somali immigrants into Castle Rock, and they're just trying to make a living like
Oh
everyone
my
else,
god.
which was
Fuck,
the
that's definitely Stephen King behind that. That fucking dork.
the first season came out, I think, in like 2014 or 2015, and they were like, and here's Cujo, and here's a character from Salem's Lot, and it's building that universe, and then they threw that out in 2016 or 2017 when Trump happened, and now it was Barkat Abdi just moved to Castle Rock, and he has his own business, but bigots want to shut it down.
God, dude, every show post 2016, even reasonably good shows, all shit the bed. Like when that happened, it was uncanny to me, like how many shows just completely jumped off a cliff over Trump.
It was a cleansing period, and I think it was probably, I don't know, it was just flushing the toilet.
Yeah.
Even
They
even
haven't
if
recovered really, right?
no,
No, yeah, we're still all in the swamp. We're still in Trump derangement syndrome. We're still feeling the effects. I think not to derail this, but to get kind of back to what we were talking about a minute ago. I think it would have been way ballsier, and it would have given the movie an edge if the only way Danny can control the shine is when he's drinking.
ooh,
And that's why he's an alcoholic. And when he doesn't drink, it's just out of control, and it's constantly happening and fucking with him, and he's constantly seeing ghosts, and the only way he can put them away is when he's drinking. So at the end, toward the end of the movie, when he's across the bar from his father who's trying to get him to drink, and he's like, no, I'm not going to drink, he has to fucking drink so he can save the girl. Like, he has to take that bullet.
Wolfman, you're bringing way too many good ideas to Stephen King properties. These are way above his level. Look, I love Stephen King. That's above his level of thing to think that complex and not that black and white about things that he would probably consider negative because it derailed his life, or that's what he ascribes a lot of that to. Even if he was like doing coke when he was fucking what a loser nerd doing coke while he's writing the Tommy knockers at his fucking typewriter. What a jerk. So I that sort of thing, I love the idea of it being that sort of complex situation, but Warner Brothers, modern Warner Brothers, I don't think, unless it was somebody like Christopher Nolan ushering that in one of his movies or somebody big along those lines, they would never entertain that
Who
sort
would
of
do that?
idea.
You need to get someone like Flanagan who's just a fucking worm to do something like this, because a real artist wouldn't do that. You have to fucking arrest Mike Flanagan in what is it, crimes against the arts for doing this piece of shit.
What is Frank Darabont just retired? Because like 10 minutes into this movie, I was like, Frank Darabont should have directed this.
Ooh, yeah. I think he's so he had a bad experience with The Walking Dead, and then I think he just got put on the bench after that.
Yeah,
I don't know
well,
if he's been up to anything.
he sued the shit out of him and won.
Oh,
So I
good.
I think because he took so much money from them, they're like, okay, he's out. I mean, he does have the horrible blemish of having directed Dreamcatchers, but his work up
Oh
to
no, no,
that.
no, no. He didn't do Dreamcast. That was Lawrence Kasdan
Oh
who did The
God.
Big Chill.
Yeah, he did the
Okay.
Mist,
I thought it
which
was
is
Darabont.
good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I knew he did. I knew he did the Mist. I thought he did Dreamcatcher, and that's what tanked him. Okay, wow. Kasdan did Dreamcatcher.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that makes
Do,
more sense, but that's awful.
do you want to tell your Dreamcatcher story, Loris?
Well, it's not really much of a story. I was in the lobby of a movie theater, and I was looking at the poster to Dreamcatcher, and then one of the older women who I think it was she looked like a lesbian, but I didn't know what a lesbian looked like when I was 10 or 11 years old. She came up to me and was trying to make conversation about Dreamcatcher, and I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I walked away. It was very uncomfortable. That's my Dreamcatcher story. So
I don't think she was a lesbian. I think she was a
I think
cream catcher.
yeah. I think she was trying to bait me. I think it was a lot like that Michael Myers meeting the 9-year-old situation that I was almost in there.
Yeah.
Dreamcatcher, by the way, was nominated for horror thriller in the Teen Choice Awards of 2003. Just in
Awesome.
case you were wondering.
Deserves it too.
Hey,
Yeah.
it's more horrifying than this fucking movie. Like it's more effective in the genre than this is.
You know who they should have got to play Jack Torrance is Tom Sizemore.
Oh yeah.
And
I
let
can
him
see
show
that.
up drunk. Let him show up his natural. Don't even do his makeup. Hans, what was that movie when we were watching films for Civic TV? We put on it. I don't know if we watched the movie or we just pulled up the trailer.
Yeah, this
And-
was like 2 days before he died.
It was ghastly. His face, it looked like he was on the embalming table, essentially. It was really shocking how horrible he looked in this movie. Please pull it up, Hans.
Ah, fuck. What
Yeah, he
was
had
it?
like
Do you
he had
remember?
like purple lips and everything.
Yes. Yeah,
Mhm.
it was really the most unsightly
Yeah.
appearance of an actor I've seen
Or-
in a film.
Or I tell you, if you want to kind of have it be like, let's get a guy who looks a lot like him, but not quite. Get fucking Walton Goggins to be Jack Torrance.
Yes, I think you can throw him in. I feel like he was attached to when they were considering a Chinatown prequel. His name was in the mix to play Nicholson's character in that. But I think they might have pulled the plug. Said it was one of those projects that got put on pause because of COVID, and then they just never picked it back up afterward. And also, he started a CBS like show called The Unicorn, where he's a single dad or something. Just like,
Yeah.
all right,
Uh,
he's gonna make some money. It's fine. But
Well, I know. I mean, I hate the idea of a Chinatown prequel, but I know he did a canceled pilot for L.A. Confidential where
Mhm.
he was Jack Sands, and I haven't been able to get a hold of it. I heard it was actually really good, but I think it was basically just a studio ploy to keep the property, and they never actually had any intention of filming the show.
Yes, I think the LA Confidential pilot might be on YouTube. I feel like I watched it because Eric Roberts was in it.
Oh.
That's how I got hooked in. It was an
All
Eric
right.
Roberts property, and it was going to be a CBS show. Yeah, Hans, you got it.
I don't remember which one it was. Look at he's made so many shitty movies from
Damn,
22.
does he have movies coming out in 2024? Even though
Yeah,
he's
look
dead?
at this. Look at this.
Oh, he did Cobra Kai this year too, huh? Wow. All right, good for him. Keep him busy even in death. College Ball movie looks great.
Yeah, I don't remember
this-
which one it was. It could be any of these.
Is this Sizemore?
Yeah.
Tom Sizemore
I
worked
don't know.
every day.
I don't know if I told you guys this story, but I met uh the actor Lyndon Ashby, who's like most famous for like being Johnny Cage in the first Mortal Kombat movie.
Hell yeah.
But he played Morgan Earp in the Wyatt Earp movie, which Tom Sizemore was on. And he was telling me all these stories about Lawrence Kasdan reaming out Sizemore for showing up to the set fucked up. And like basically like getting in his face and like throwing him against the wall and being like, listen to me, you cocksucker. You think there's not a blacklist in this town? There's a fucking blacklist in this town.
I thought you were gonna say that you sat on Tom Sizemore's lap once. And it was, it was a bad experience.
why would you get that idea?
You know,
that
I guess
story.
it wasn't enough for him to not cast him in Dreamcatcher as like a lieutenant army, you know. So it's really a shame. Tom Sizemore was full of potential, and it got used on Celebrity Rehab season 3 when they were like, "Hey, his ex Heidi Fleiss is on here. Wouldn't it be great for drama to cast both of them?" And let me tell you, it was great for drama.
But that's what happens to like the interesting people is
Mhm.
they don't get cast in Dr. Sleep. They get put on fucking reality TV.
Oh no,
Yeah,
Hans! I thought you were
here's-
pulling up his obituary. That would have been
Oh.
a little more respectful here.
My
Oh
bad.
God,
You're
what do you
right.
mean violating? Huh? What is that word violation? He's great in Twin Peaks: The Return.
Who was he in that?
He
I
was
remember.
Dougie's coworker who tried to sabotage him and put a hit out
Oh
on him.
yeah, okay, yeah, I remember that now.
And then he was so remorseful. He started
Mhm.
crying and begging for forgiveness from Dougie, and Dougie, of course, forgave him. So
Yeah,
it was great.
I gotta watch that again.
I just got back to Twin Peaks season 3 to watch the 8th episode. Whenever they wind up going back to New Mexico
Mhm.
and doing the got a homeless people at the
Yeah,
gas
yeah.
station. When I watched that episode, I was like, what are they? Why is this happening? You know,
Mhm.
what is this big waste of time here? Um, and then as soon as we got to that part, I was like, oh, fuck, this might be the best episode of the series. I love this. And that was generally my feeling about Twin Peaks as I was watching. I was like, we're not getting Coop.
Oh
As soon
yeah.
as it hit like episode 11, I was like, nope, he's gonna drag this out to the very end with fucking Dougie. So
Mhm.
just I'm gonna have to buckle in and get used to this now. My expectations are dashed.
Yeah.
But now I prefer Dougie to Coop.
Well,
Probably. I don't
well,
know.
well, I mean, I gotta say, as frustrating as that series was, and as much of a troll as it was, when Coop finally shows up and like gives the thumbs up, that hits so fucking
Oh
hard.
yeah,
Like I
yeah.
was cheering, and I was all alone. Yeah.
That those last two episodes of the series, they were doing 2 episodes a night of Twin Peaks when it originally aired on Showtime. Those last 2 episodes of the show are just fantastic. I
Mhm.
actually, in retrospect, it might be my favorite thing. The entire season of that might be my favorite thing that David Lynch has done, and I love a lot of David Lynch. So,
Mhm.
all right, Doctor Sleep. We have to talk about the grand finale, the Avengers Assemble team up of all the monsters from the original movie coming together for an act of good to stop Rose the Hat. And they all appear, and it's like their spooky world version of themselves, not the authentic good makeup jobs. You even have like the great party guy who was mentioned earlier in the film by Dan Torrance. He comes back. I think the twins probably come back.
Yeah, they're there.
Yep, it's everybody you saw in that first movie, but a much lesser version, and they all crowd in and go ah
Oh
to
no,
Rose. Yeah.
I forgot that our Jack also has a scene where he's running with the axe.
Oh, we're watching the ending now for
Oh,
those on
there.
patreon.com/LowRes. We're just pulling up
Oh
on
no.
mute.
Oh, look at that.
We have Rose the Hat strangling Dan Torrance, and he's getting quick visions of recreations from the 1980s Shining, as
Okay,
directed by Mike Flanagan.
now this moment right here, before the monsters show up, when she's like stabbing that wound in his leg and sucking up his mist, that was almost good because it looks like she's fucking him and that she's like really like getting off on it. And I was like, okay, where was this throughout the rest of the movie? Like, where was this element?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
but
they
look,
bring it in right at the end.
it's all the boxes that he has in his head where he's kept all this, right? That's how they explain it. Oh
Oh,
no,
that reminded
boxes.
me of Dreamcatcher too.
Yeah.
Actually,
I was gonna say, how often does Stephen King do this mind palace bullshit?
oh god, we're watching the team up here happen as they kill Rose the Hat. But yeah, in Dreamcatcher, Jonesy goes to a library in his head, and then you're first introduced to it through. Oh god, the Great Party Guy sucks. There's
So
fucking
bad.
Yeah.
Joe Turkel, horrible. Um, but in this movie, you have Abra, who just appears without eye sockets for some reason. They decided to make her a little creepy as she's tricking Rose the Hat into putting her hand into a file or something, and then the skin on her hand gets pulled off, and she's like, "Oh fuck, who cares about that? My friend is dying," and it's the giant from Twin Peaks. So it's not visually effective, especially when all the cabinets and the files are CGI.
Yeah. Well, and it's also like that's like other than the kid getting killed, that's like the most harrowing scene in the movie, and it's happening to the monster.
Yes,
Like
yeah.
you're more frightened for the monster in that moment than you are for any of the human characters at any point in the movie.
I do think that the most effective moment of the film is when they're killing Jacob Tremblay, the little baseball player.
But
That reads
but
as fine for a moment before they decide to take it over the top and get real goofy with it.
but it's entirely on him.
Hmm.
Like he's the only reason that scene is so memorable. Like
Yes.
all the shit they're doing, and even they're like cutting him. They had this fucking gay little knife, and you just get these little spurts of blood. Like it's all in his performance. If they had a lesser actor in that scene, yeah, it would be straight out of CW.
Which he's slumming it doing this movie immediately after Room, where he played like a trapped child who spent his entire life in a room, and I
With
believe he
Brie
might have been.
Larson.
Yes, he might have been nominated for an Oscar or something. I don't recall, but
Yeah.
much better film than Doctor Sleep. Hans, on this go around, did you pick up anything new in your hatred?
I don't think anything. Well, yeah, it was clearer, so I hated it more. I couldn't see it as well before, so the look of it didn't. I mean, it did bother me,
Well,
but
is there anything you liked?
no, when it ended, just because it was done, that's it. I think.
Because they do the Shining reprise music, the last podcast on the left theme song. Is that why
Oh
you liked it?
yeah,
It reminded you of that?
yeah, yeah. No, I just. I no, I hated it. The whole ending where his mom grabs his face and then he turns from a boy to an adult, just in case you didn't understand that that's who it was. It's completely irredeemable. I don't think I'm ever going to see this again. There's no reason to rewatch this. It just sucks. It was just a miserable experience through and through. And it's the worst movie I've seen this year, and I've seen really bad movies. But this has been the one that I hated the most. I don't know if ever. I don't want to say that, but yeah, nothing. There's nothing that was done well here. Nothing that I enjoyed. It's just hated it.
What about you, Wolfman? Is there anything that you find redeeming about this movie?
Well, I liked Rebecca Ferguson's performance as Rose the Hat, even though I don't think that portion of the movie is effective. Like she was the only charismatic person on screen. Um, and yeah, I felt like it was wasted. I felt like she deserved a better movie. They all did. Everyone deserved a better film. We certainly did. Um, but that's about it. Yeah, Hans, to your point, yeah, that ending where he sees his mom. Why the fuck does he see his mom? She didn't die there. Like he should see his dad, and that should be where Jack Torrance is redeemed. Like, and that would like seal the deal with redeeming the Kubrick version in the eyes of Stephen King.
Hmm.
But they didn't do that because they hate fathers and sons, and Danny has to die so that Abra can shine on
Right.
in this
Yeah.
movie where a multi-ethnic polycule stalks the American heartland, killing white children. Danny has to die in the end for the benefit of the magic black girl.
And I believe we end on it bookends on Abra being like, "Oh yeah, Dad's alive in the afterlife, and we talk." Like no one gave a shit about your fucking dad. This was
No.
Danny's movie. You should be talking about Danny, But we don't get that. It's her dad who died off screen. Who cares about him? And then that's that. That's the end. The future is looking bright. Nothing, Oz. You got
No.
I
nothing to
thought
add
you were
there?
gonna cut it.
I thought you were about to say something. No, you just seem
Sorry.
sad and disgusted.
Yeah, just stop giving this man work. He sucks.
Well,
He's
actually, his new Netflix show, I believe it's not performing well. The Fall of the House of Usher is not getting as rave reviews as I
they
think
usually
his.
do.
Yeah, so he's done a couple of different shows for Netflix now, and his whole thing is he wants to recreate that homey small town feeling that a lot of the Stephen King properties do, but infuse new age atheism into that. So it's literally like if you went to Portland, Oregon right now, and that's not charming. That
Yeah.
doesn't really work for spooky spirits and horror. If it's like, yeah, I don't believe in that. I don't believe in spirits. Okay, but somebody has to in order for this to work. So what the fuck are you gonna do here? Now he did I think it was Hill House as a
Yeah, The Haunting
series,
of Hill House.
And
And then another one, something about an island or
Uh,
something.
it
yeah,
was he did Haunting of Hill House, which I saw and I actually kind of liked.
that's
They
been
needed,
the least reprehensible thing he's done, and I still couldn't get on board with it.
yeah, and then he did the Haunting of Bly Manor, which I didn't watch, and then he did Midnight Mass, which everyone swears by, but like I saw just like the thumbnail for it, and I saw like The Minister, and I was like, Midnight Mass, I'm not watching that
Hmm.
because I already fucking know what it's gonna be.
I
Uh,
watched maybe 4 episodes of Midnight Mass just because I
mhm,
was like, you know what, I'm in the mood for something new that I would never watch, and I know I'm going to dislike. So I'm going
yeah,
to put on Midnight Mass. And you're right, Wolfman. You can read exactly what that is just from the poster alone, with the
yeah,
hip young priest, and no, it's shit. It's bad, and it's all the characters that I described of like, oh, it's a small town, and she's got like a rough around the edges boyfriend, and yeah, nobody believes in the afterlife or Christianity in this town,
yeah,
which it doesn't work for what you're doing. So
yeah.
it's that lack of commitment to, okay, we're going to go all in on what is required for this,
Mhm.
and hopefully people wise up. Seems like maybe with this one people are starting to wise up, and his workload will gradually slow, because he is just a new version of Mick Garris or any one of these guys who picks up the Stephen King properties and runs through them and does a cheap version.
Well, I have
Well,
noticed that like everyone I know who digs all of Mike Flanagan shit is a girl.
Mm.
I don't know if that's the case with you guys, but all the Mike Flanagan fans I know are women, which I find interesting because one thing I respect about Mike Flanagan is that he's got a thing for hot brunettes and he puts them all throughout everything he does. He
well,
uses Carla Gugino in
one of them
almost
is his.
everything.
He married one of them, didn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah,
his
yeah,
wife,
Kate Siegel.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
And but the real case against Mike Flanagan, and that really proves that he's not an artist, is that he did that movie Gerald's Game, and in the book, the woman is naked, chained to the bed, and this man had the opportunity to have Carla Gugino chained to a bed naked for an entire movie, and he didn't fight for that.
And at no point she is, right?
No, she's in a negligee, which is fine, but no, he cheated us all that day, and that William Friedkin would not have compromised there. He would have, yeah, he would have insisted full nudity for the full run of the film.
Well, what I'm hearing about William Friedkin is he has a penchant for little Filipinos as men, is what I'm hearing these days. I don't
Oh,
know,
really?
but yeah, I don't know. Tune into the
That's
next episode of Movies to find
that's
out.
that's just slandering a dead man who can't defend
I,
himself.
I would certainly hope so. I mean, it would be very shocking if that turned out to be the case. But no, I think you're absolutely right. And there is a study that just came out today or yesterday that says Gen Z has had enough of sex and sexual things in their movies. They're done with it. It disgusts them. It makes them sick. They want friendship and platonic friendship. So I get where maybe Mike Flanagan's just trying to appeal to the younger audience.
Why can't you have both?
A nude platonic friendship sounds
No,
great
no,
on
but I
film.
mean, you have a main character and his buddy who he's a
Mhm.
platonic friend with, and then you have the hot broad and they smash in the end. I don't see why that's a problem.
That's a classic formula.
Yeah,
That's
it stood the test of time.
I think it'll make a comeback soon. I actually don't think that study is correct at all. I think it's bullshit. People think about what's been hot and what's been a lot of the talk and gossip. It's The Idol. It's things like that where there's something provocative. Blonde was the talking point of the moment last year. So I don't buy that at all. I think it is going to make a comeback. And I actually have more faith now that some of the better directors are going to slide through the cracks and get work, since we do seem to be softly coming out of this moment of, oh, everything has to be this rigid PC form. It starts with women. Women have to get on board with whatever the new thing is.
Mm.
And then the rest of the culture shapes to that. And I think Red Scare has put a dent in what they're willing to entertain. I think we're going to wrap up episode 300 on that note. So, Wolfman, where would you like to direct people?
Oh, folks, you can follow me on Twitter at DET_Wolfman. You can also check out my rock and roll radio show, On the Beat with Detective Wolfman, at SoundCloud. It's a SoundCloud exclusive. And for now, that's all I've got. But I have some things in the mix for you to look forward to in the near future. Announcements soon to come.
Excellent, excellent. And you know what? I just watched The Swimmer recently, based off you guys covering that for Drunk on Movies, and
Oh yeah.
I really enjoyed that film. I thought that movie was very interestingly shot.
Mm-hmm.
I'll definitely say that. Some of the lenses used and just the the crazy depth of field, and I don't know, it's a very enjoyable movie. So if you want something other than Doctor Sleep to watch, check out The Swimmer and check out that episode of Drunk on Movies, and also On the Beat with Detective Wolfman, of course. Now, Hans, you look like you're playing Minesweeper here. You look like you checked out of the episode when you lost all your passionate hatred during that last go. What do you want people to look for when they think of Hans Lom Barboza?
Nothing. Don't look that up. Don't look
Your LinkedIn account? What? Your family
Yeah,
Facebook account?
my job profile, my yeah, nothing. I don't know. Fucking Twitter, H-word name there. Watch me tweet at politicians and get banned again.
What politician? I haven't seen you tweet at a politician in a while.
Yeah, I learned. I try to look for my older. Remember my old account, and it's still like,
Accounts.
Elon didn't bring them back because of what I said to that shooting boy. What was his name?
The shooting boy.
David Hogg?
David Hogg.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. So
Well, maybe
yeah.
we need to, for episode 301 or 302, we have to watch The Insurrectionist Next Door, which was recommended to me right after Doctor Sleep. And that is directed by Alexandra Pelosi.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
glad
Yeah.
that HBO and Warner Brothers and Discovery are still in the propaganda business, still making those documentaries. And they also just added a news tab on Max. So
Because that's
I
where
know.
you want to go. Yeah.
Well,
For news.
what they were toying with the idea of before was doing CNN bulletins at the bottom of the screen when you're watching movies and TV shows on there. So I really thought Zaslav was going to fix things, and he's just driving things into the fucking gutter even harder. So, all right. Well, hopefully that's not something that they wind up rolling with. But Wolfman, thank you for joining us for episode 300 to talk about Doctor Sleep. It has been great discussing this and obviously Silver Bullet with you last week.
Oh yeah. Thanks for having me. The pleasure's all mine.
All right. That has been movies for this 300 episodes. Thank you for listening.